Good evening. Thank you for watching our program tonight. We're going to start with business news, and we've come to visit Mr. Tony Zara, who is the president of the MHRA. We're going to speak to him about tourism and the forecast for this coming year. Thank you, Mr. Zara, for welcoming us to your office and for agreeing to give us an update on tourism right now.
Thank you very much for inviting me again, Leo.
What's going on the tourism front?
Well, looking back in 2024, we had about 3.6 million arrivals. You know, I can remember the days when one of the ministers in the mid-80s asked me whether we would be able to achieve 1 million tourists. The gentleman is no longer with us today, but he would be extremely surprised to hear that not only have we achieved 1 million tourists, but we are there with 3.6 million arrivals, averaging about 7 nights per arrival. So the situation looking back in terms of arrivals has been quite astonishing. Of course, this is not to say that we are the only countries that had a very good 2024, because tourism everywhere jumped in 2004 and everybody had very good numbers. Looking forward into 25, we always have to look at the seats available. And I am told that the seats available this year compared to 24 will be approximately 10% more than in 24.
Wow.
That means that we should have 10% more arrivals here in Malta. So in terms of numbers, we seem to be achieving ever more. What was a little bit concerning, and is still a little bit concerning, is that our five-star properties are reporting that January and February have not been as good as January, February 24. Consequently, since we have more arrivals in January and February 25 over 24, it indicates that our arrivals are seeking accommodation which is not in the five-star region.
So we come back to what we've spoken about before, about the spend per person, which has obviously gone down or leveled out.
And it has not gone up.
It's leveled out.
It's leveled out.
But I believe the last time you spoke, you expressed your interest in seeing bigger spending tourists.
Yes. I think that everybody is aware that the size of the island is such that we are limited as to how many people we can take eventually. We certainly are not in a position to compete with Spain, who last year had about 85 million tourists, or countries of that size. So consequently, since you are limited in the number that you can take, you should be thinking in terms of ensuring that each arrival leaves the maximum amount of spend in Malta. Of course, that does not mean that every arrival has to go into five-star properties, but it would be far better for the island economically if the spend per person was to increase, and those passengers that arrive, those customers, those tourists that arrive in Malta actually have spending ability much higher than the present ones have.
Do you think the increase of boutique hotels, boutique properties, have perhaps impacted the five-star stays? Because they're not classed as five stars, but they're actually quite exclusive.
There is no doubt that there is a general trend internationally for higher spending tourists to visit and to stay and at what is termed nowadays boutique hotels, because they're looking for an experience. Possibly those same people that are staying in boutique hotels would, if traveling on business, stay in the branded five-star big hotels, because they're at that time not so much looking for an experience, but more to be serviced from the point of view of what their business requirements are. So yes, I think that the boutique hotels have filled in a void which was necessary, and possibly they are eating into that market. But you must also remember that a boutique hotel would have approximately 20 rooms.
Or less.
Or less. Or a little bit more, but let's say an average of 20 rooms. So in order to compete with a 300-room hotel, it takes 15 boutique hotels, and when you count all our boutique hotels, we don't have that many boutique hotels. So in reality, we're talking about relatively small numbers compared to the bed capacity of the five-star hotels.
And now we're going to take a look at a service by Net News.
Flaqa li l-Partit Nazzjonalista kellu mal-Assoċjazzjoni tal-Catering il-kap tal-Partit Nazzjonalista Bernard Grech wiegħed li l-Partit Nazzjonalista se jkompli jimbotta l-proposti tiegħu il-qudiem għas-settur tal-catering, proposti li ġew xprunati minn laqat ma' din l-istess assoċjazzjoni. Matul din il-laqa Lejs qalet li għalkemm japprezzaw ngħinuna li ngħatat mill-Gvern, preżentament qed jittieħdu deċiżjonijiet li qed iħallu impatt ferm negattiv fuq dan is-settur bl-ispejjeż qed ikomplu tilajn il fuq. Tkellmu wkoll fuq is-sitwazzjoni li qed jaffaċċjaw numru ta' negozji hekk kif il-kirjiet sena wara l-oħra qed jiżdiedu b'mod esaġerat tant li mhux qed ilaħqu bl-ispejjeż kollha, dan bil-konsegwenza li wħud minn negozji mhux qed ikollhom għażla oħra għar li jagħlqu il-bibien tagħhom. Min-naħa tiegħu f'kummenti lil Net News il-kap tal-Partit Nazzjonalista Bernard Grech kompla jispjega aktar dwar in-numru ta' kwistjonijiet li ġew diskussi.
Permezz ta' din il-laqgħa stajna nitkellmu dwar l-isfidi varji imma anke l-opportunitajiet f'dan il-qasam. Tkellmu magħna dwar kemm il-profitti tagħhom naqsu anke minn studju li huma għamlu, imma wkoll dan huwa dovut għal nuqqas ta' regolamentazzjoni kif suppost, imma wkoll nuqqasijiet oħrajn minħabba li jkun hemm min addirittura jikser il-liġijiet u ma jkunx bl-ebda mod enforced.
Apparti minn hekk Bernard Grech qal il-Partit Nazzjonalista se jkompli jimbotta il-proposti tiegħu bilan il-problemi li qed jaffaċċja dan is-settur ikunu indirizzati.
Dak li wedna diġà fil-passat fejn jidħol il-VAT aħna insostnuh li din għandha tonqos f'dak li rigwarda l-catering establishment, tkellimna wkoll magħhom dwar temi oħrajn varji ta' kif nistgħu nkomplu intellaw il-livell tas-settur ikun jistgħu jkollhom il-profitti ġusti meħtieġa imma li jkollna operaturi tal-affari tagħhom li jsegwu l-liġi u li flimkien nkunu nistgħu verament nagħtu lil min imur fil-catering establishment esperjenza ta' kwalità ġenwina kemm għal-Malti kif ukoll għat-turisti li jżuruna.
Min-naħa tiegħu il-Viċi President tal-Lejs Matthew Paċ qal li din kienet laqgħa pożittiva ħafna fil-waqt li saħaq b'mod partikolari fuq il-bżonn ta' riforma fis-sitwazzjoni tal-imwejjed u s-siġġijiet f'postijiet pubbliċi.
Ovvjament hemm ċertu issues li qed jimpattawna bi kbir nominalment il-BCRS li kienet logistical nightmare għalina u tellatena l-cost base bi kbir, ġifieri ċertu restaurants kbar li huma nkwetati fuqha. Bħala assoċjazzjoni wkoll aħna qed naħdmu proattivament ħafna fuq din il-problema li hawn li ngħidilha hot potato tal-imwejt u s-siġġijiet. Jiġifieri aħna proattivi ħafna, aħna ma naqblu qatt ma nabbuż, però fl-istess ħin irridu nlażnu daqsxejn il-proċess burokratiku biex nagħmlu iktar straightforward f'timeline qasir.
Julia Falzon għal Net News.
An increase of 10% brings up our projected tourist arrivals to nearly 4 million, right?
That's correct.
Yes.
Nearly 4 million.
So,
yes.
What are your views about this? I mean, that's a very high number, really.
Well, clearly, we have some bottlenecks, particularly infrastructure bottlenecks. We are seeing, for example, we were talking to Infrastructure Malta about the works that are going to be carried out in Bujibba and St. Paul's Bay. This will mean that the main street of Bujibba, Turisti, is going to have to be taken up to within new cables so that it reinforces the distribution network of Malta. The square itself is going to be taken up because there needs to be some drainage arrangements. So here we have two projects in the main part of our tourism offer, which will see works probably going all over summer and into next winter.
How do the hotel operators in these areas cope with the impact that all these works bring?
Well, we try and manage it. In fact, our discussions with Infrastructure Malta were on how best to manage these projects. We talked about the project being split into various contractors and not just one contractor, so that you have maximum effort towards completing the work in the shortest possible time. Of course, there's a limit to how much you can put in terms of manpower at the same time. So managing the impact and minimizing the impact is what we need. And this will require the cooperation of a lot of people, residents, tourists themselves, our managers. But if we do this, we will minimize. We will not. It will never be possible not to have, but we will minimize the inconvenience.
Sure. Can we take a look at competition? In your opinion, which are the countries that would mainly be competing with the tourism sector in Malta over the next year? Well,
it depends on the time of year. I mean, we are one of the few, but certainly one that has a 12-month of the year operation. Consequently, our target market for the winter is not necessarily the same as our target market for the summer. Summer we're a resort, so anybody that has got beach and sun, etc., would be a competitor of ours. In the winter, we have got events, and we have got also our history and culture that is mainly on display. So there, we are more competing with cities than with resorts.
What are the strong points in the sector that have developed over the last year?
Strong points. Well, the most important thing is always connectivity. And fortunately, we have resolved, at least on the surface it seems to have resolved, the difficulty that we had with the airline, with the national airline, whereby Air Malta became KM Malta Airlines, and this was done seamlessly. I was extremely surprised and happy to see how seamless the changeover was. So that was a very important factor, and the national airline still remains a very important factor because we are an island and we need to have connectivity. And when I hear people say, well, we don't need that because we've got other airlines, yes, I would like to remind them that when COVID came, it was Malta Airlines, Air Malta, which kept the island connected with other countries. And this was not only for tourism purposes only, but I know of a fact that we had flights going to Rome to get particular medicines which were urgently needed here in Malta, and which only Air Malta would and could do. So the national airline is extremely important and remains part of the whole infrastructure of the island. So that, I think, is the main achievement. We've had other achievements. You know, we've hosted big conferences here. The last conference was the OSCE here in December. It went flawlessly. You had some very, very high profile figures, political figures internationally. Consequently, it was a challenge insofar as the security was concerned. But it happened in Malta without even anybody noticing that there was this big conference here in Malta. So these are the things that we can all embrace and say we've done well.
So once you've spoken about the highlights, can I ask you what you think the downsides were over the last year and how can they be improved?
Well, the downside, we have got a problem with our waste, and it has never been solved. You know, it has been tackled many times, but the result has been disappointing. Here, we need to have fresh thinking. If we're going to apply the same solutions that we have had previously, the result is going to be again disappointing. So we really need to have some fresh solutions. It seems that the money has been spent on it, but the solutions have not been the right ones. I understand that there are a number of initiatives being discussed right now, which are fresh initiatives, not the normal, let's bring in some more people to solve the problem. And this has to be very much on the agenda of our new Minister of Tourism.
What are your thoughts on the new Minister of Tourism? He's got quite a few responsibilities now, more than one sector.
Absolutely. He's still the Minister of Foreign Affairs, so he's the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Tourism. So it's still very fresh. We've had our meetings already with the gentleman, and he has given us his ideas of how to move forward. I wish him very well, and we're going to support him because his ideas seem to be very much in line with what we are thinking as an industry.
Do you think there should be a person who's more dedicated just to tourism, or you think it would work out well like this?
Well, it's a question of management.
Yes.
You know, can he manage himself? Can he manage his time? Can he manage his people? Can he have good people around him who he can delegate to? So if he cannot do all of these things, then I think that he will do a good job. I'm not sure that just because you have a minister dedicated on tourism, you're going to have a success. We've had some minister of tourisms that I can remember who were total failures. And it would have been even better if the country did not have a Minister of Tourism when they were there. So it's not a question of whether you have one that is complete and dedicated on tourism only. It's a question of whether he is capable of doing the job. And if he's capable of doing the job, he can do the two without difficulty.
Thank you. We've spoken before about the importation of labor in the hospitality industry. How is that going now? Because you had a lot of concerns the last time we spoke.
Yes, well, a lot of discussion during 24 about how we move forward. It started off with the famous skills pass, which eventually was implemented. We had said that there would be difficulties in implementing this, and so there were. But eventually, it's now taken this issue into its stride. So we are moving there. And now we have got the new labor immigration policy, which has just been announced and which is going through the consultation period. It's quite a document, actually. So the objective is certainly something that we all agree with. We need people who are much more skilled in what we need. in English and in our traditions and our cultures, etc., rather than just bringing in numbers to fill voids. So here we have a situation where we need the TCNs, because without them the country won't function. I would like to emphasize that the employment went from about 180,000 to 230,000 employees in under 10 years. So it's not a question of whether we need them or not. You know, we just don't have the population here. So we needed those third country nationals or people coming from abroad to fill in those vacancies. Now we need to go to a higher level and try and get the best of the TCNs from these countries. And we must remember that we get about 10,000 every year. And we're looking into a pool, because sometimes people say, oh, you know, we don't have enough. You know. We're looking into a pool, if you look at India, of 1.4 billion. So 10,000 and 1.4 billion, we can and should be able to get very good people.
Dokument uffiċjali mniedi mill-Gvern wara kif mill-2013 sal-2023 il-persun ġejjin minn pajjiżi terzi u li għandhom l-età biex jaħdmu żdiedu b'750%. Dan ifisser illi minn ftit aktar minn 11,000 persuna żdiedu għal aktar minn 100,000 fejn dan l-ammont ma jinkludix tfal u anzjani. Wara 11-il sena ta' ekonomija bbażata fuq il-kwantità u mhux il-kwalità xprunata mill-istess Gvern, wara nuqqas ta' viżjoni għal kollox u nuqqas ta' investiment xieraq kemm fis-saħħa kif ukoll fis-sistema tad-dawl u l-ilma, wara li pajjiżna spiċċa f'gat għal kollox bil-vetturi u konġestjoni sieħa ta' traffiku, il-Gvern issa nieda proċess ta' konsultazzjoni. Fost ir-rakkomandazzjonijiet hemm li dawk is-sidien ta' kumpanniji li jkollhom rata għolja ta' tkeċċijiet ta' impjegati msemmija mhux se jitħallu iħaddmu ħaddiema TCNs magħhom. Il-ħlas ta' permessi ġodda jiżdiedu u r-renewals jorsu. Qed jiġi propostu wkoll li l-ħaddiema li ġejjin minn barra l-Unjoni Ewropea u li huma ġodda irid bil-fors ikollhom kont fil-bank sabiex il-paga tidħollilhom dritt hemm bilan li jinqata' l-abbuż. Dawk li ilhom jaħdmu Malta u jitħallsu bi flus kontanti jistgħu jibqgħu jitħallsu hekk. Dan fil-waqt li tiġi propostu wkoll illi dawn il-ħaddiema jieħdu kors ta' integrazzjoni f'pajjiżhom stess qabel jitlu f'Malta permezz ta' online courses.
What about the offering of a more authentic Maltese product? Do you think so many TCNs will impact the authenticity of the Maltese product?
Of course. You know, it will. If you go to a restaurant and you're only meeting third country nationals, you start wondering where you are. You know? So definitely, and this is why we need to ensure that the third country nationals are well schooled in our cultures and in our ways, so that at least, although we cannot do without them, at least they will be able to give a good impression of the island. And it requires a lot of work, a lot of teaching, so that they will give the best value. But it's a reality which we cannot escape.
What about ITS? Do you think ITS has started to attract more Maltese nationals?
Yes, ITS has always attracted a lot of nationals, but the reality is that the numbers in the country have grown so much that the Maltese have a lot of choices where to work. In the old days, we used to say bil-Malti għal kull qadma aw mit kelb. Today, għal kull kelb aw mit qadma. And that's the reality, you know. For
So
every
what
dog-
you're saying is that people have more choices,
Absolutely.
more
Absolutely.
avenues to explore,
Absolutely.
which is not such a bad thing, really.
Which is exactly, that is what we set out to do, to grow the economy. And let us not forget that whilst we are here sitting and saying we can't find labor, 60 miles further up the road, they have 40% unemployment. So which one would you like? We can't find labor or 40% unemployment?
Are a lot of Italians still coming to Malta to look for work?
Well, not as much. Probably this year there will be more, because up till recently there was a regulation in Italy that if you were unemployed, you were guaranteed, I think, 800 or 900 euros a month. Consequently, there was every good reason to stay at home, getting your 900 euros a month, staying with your mama and your papa at home, and then working 2 or 3 days unofficially in the market, and everybody's happy.
Have they clamped down on that? Or
Yes, apparently this was stopped as of December.
Well, it's a good thing, really.
Well, absolutely. I was thinking of taking a residence myself in Sicily.
What about, before we close for today, can we focus more on Gozo and a little bit on Comino?
Of course. Well, Gozo is a particular, and it should always be particular. You can remember that in the original days, you had the highest level of educated tourists and well-off tourists that were going to Gozo and staying in Gozo. They wanted to have a complete relaxation, you know, and unwind in Gozo. Clearly, since then, things have moved further, and Gozo is not only attracting those people, but attracting other people. So here we have a situation where we have to be careful that we don't kill the goose that lays the golden egg. Overdevelopment, you know, that sort of thing is certainly won't encourage the high-end tourists to visit there.
Għawdex għandu bżonn pjan reġjonali speċifiku jeħtieġ konnettività bl-ajru li jinbena vapur ġdid għal Gozo Channel li jiġu implementati l-master plans għal Mars għal Fornu Xlendi li jiġi żviluppat parkeġġ taħt l-art fir-Rabat u li titnaqqas ir-rata tal-VAT għas-settur kulturali. Fil-preżentazzjoni ta' dawn il-proposti l-Assoċjazzjoni tat-Turiżmu f'Għawdex qalet li tinsab imħasba minħabba l-iżvilupp eċċessiv u bla pjan li qed iseħħ fil-Gżira Awċija. Il-GTA spjegati li dan il-bini kollu qed jaffettwa b'mod negattiv il-karattru Awċi u bla dubju li qed iħalli impatt fuq l-esperjenza sħiħa tat-turisti. Intant fost il-proposti għal budget il-GTA qed issemmi wkoll il-ħtieġa ta' aktar fondi għas-settur tad-diving u li jsir investiment f'hyperbaric chamber akbar fl-isptar ta' Għawdex. Il-GTA trid li jiġu inċentivati niċeċ turistiċi ġodda, iżda fuq kollox qed tipproponi b'saħħa li l-Gvern ma jibqax jikkompeti mas-settur privat fl-ingaġġ ta' ħaddiema.
Comino is still...
Before you go to Comino, why do you think that quite a lot of Maltese people today prefer to go to Sicily than Gozo?
Well, the reality is that Sicily has become much more accessible. And as we always said, connectivity is the name of the game. So you have got a situation where you can reach Sicily by car in 90 minutes. You know, of course, Gozo is much closer than 90 minutes, but Sicily offers an opportunity which is different from Gozo. It offers also good value for money, which is now competing with Gozo. So consequently, the Maltese have an alternative. If there wasn't the catamaran or so many flights to Sicily, then probably the Maltese will still be going to Gozo. But the Maltese are still going to Gozo. The reality is that there are many more Maltese who are able and capable to spend money on their free time than there was previously.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Can we look at Camino now?
Camino is an excellent example where perhaps we need to be focused more on having something which is out of this world, a wow. And to do that, you need to ensure that the product remains pristine, you know, and if you're going to have accommodation, it should be of the highest possible standard so it attracts the best possible tourists there. It needs to be managed better in terms of the day trippers.
Min gżira l-ġenna tal-art kemuna spiċċat gżira l-barranin qed iwissu biex ħadd ma jersaqlem. Review wara l-oħra fuq is-sit TripAdvisor dwar Kemuna u l-Blue Lagoon. Sit li mtela kollu kummenti negattivi ta' persuni jilmentaw dwar il-post ta' kif saħansitra jiddeskrivew din id-destinazzjoni turistika bħala skem. Bit-turisti stess jgħidu li stennew li se tkun ferm differenti minn dak li sabu. Kumment minnhom jgħid li ż-żona mhix kif kienet reklamata. Persuna partikolari qalet li l-gżira kienet mimlija nies u b'ħafna sunbeds f'żona żgħira. Ħafna qalu li Kemuna gżira mill-isbaħ iżda mhux se jerġgħu jersqu lhem u wis inqas jissuġġerixxu lin-nies imorru lejn din il-gżira. Il-gvern ilu jiġi mwissi sabiex jaġixxi dwar din is-sitwazzjoni qabel ikun tard wisq. Weda li żgur mhux forsi ma żammiex b'riżultat li se nispiċċaw nitilfu turisti minħabba reklam ħażin li qed jagħmlu lil pajjiżna.
I understand our new Minister of Tourism is already thinking of managing that situation. So hopefully, if our new tourism minister can manage that situation, then Camino can become a jewel for the island of Malta.
What about the increase in food prices? They've impacted a lot of establishments, catering establishments and restaurants. And in fact, I think some of the prices are comparable to cities like Rome and Paris.
Yes, the main difficulty with our catering establishments is the rents. The rents have gone astronomical. I was seeing an ad just recently where an 18 square meter catering outlet, it's a little bit bigger than my bathroom, was being rented out for what they said an incredibly good price of 180 euros per day.
Right.
When you think about, but he did say, you know, without even a chuckle, he did say, but you can use the outside as well. So consequently, the 18 square meters he was saying is not actually 18 square meters because you've got the pavement outside which you can use for yourself too. But how can you have a good price if you start off with a rent of 180 euros per day for 18 square meters?
But isn't that putting people off from starting up catering businesses?
Well, it doesn't seem to.
Doesn't seem to.
Because everywhere I see is a catering outlet. In fact, I was walking down Valletta yesterday, and my favorite man who sells vegetables is there. He said, Madonna Tony, we're an open air restaurant here. Everywhere is restaurants.
Mm-hmm. So you're saying that...
open air kitchen, actually, he said.
Yes, open air kitchen. But I mean, the salaries in Malta are not comparable. We mentioned Rome and Paris. So
well, they're not far off today, don't worry. They're not far off. You know, the salaries, if you talk about chefs and high level, they're not far off.
Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much, Leah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for watching our business news today, where we spoke with Mr. Tony Zara, who's the president of the MHRA. We spoke about tourism in Malta, Gozo, and a forecast for the coming year. Should you have any comments or queries, please send them to the number that appears on the screen. I'm Leah Hogg for Net TV.